A share subscription agreement is a contract whereby a company, typically a startup, agrees to issue new shares to an investor, and that investor agrees to buy those shares by typically giving the company money. This is a common way for growing companies and startups to raise capital. It's commonly referred to as equity finance. You're giving equity, part of your company, in return for money, finance. And it's different from debt finance, which is when a company takes out a loan and has to repay that loan in the future. Now, the share subscription agreement is not to be confused with the share purchase agreement. A share purchase agreement, referred to as the SPA, is typically used in M&A transactions, mergers and acquisitions, whereby a buyer is buying existing shares from an existing shareholder as part of a larger transaction where the buyer is buying an entire company from the seller. So what are the key terms of a share subscription agreement? First, we'll need to detail the parties, which is the company that's issuing the shares, and who is the investor. Is it them as an individual, or is it, for example, their company? Second, we will need to detail the number and type of shares that are being issued to the investor, and the subscription price. So how much is the investor paying per share? And lastly, when those shares are going to be issued to the investor. Typically, companies would want to enroll or apply for the seed enterprise or simply the enterprise investment scheme so that their investors benefit from specific tax relief benefits. There are multiple conditions that need to be met for the tax relief to apply for investors, but one of them is that the shares need to be new shares. So these cannot be existing shares held, for example, by one of the co-founders and are being transferred from the co-founder to an investor. That typically does not qualify for the tax relief scheme. Now, before we discuss how the advanced subscription agreement is different, feel free to send me an email if looking for professional legal advice. We can also set up a legal advice call, and with our calls, there are no charges, no obligations, and no nonsense. Email me now at info@zoppi.co.uk. Fantastic. Now let's talk about the differences. When it comes to the share subscription agreement, typically the investor is issued the shares immediately. On the other hand, the advanced subscription agreement is typically used by a company to line up their investors in a funding round. So they go around, they've identified willing investors, they get them to sign the ASA pledging money, and when they've reached their target amount of capital that they wanted to raise, they bring the funding round to a close, they enact the procedure to, for example, issue those different shares, and then allot them to their investors. When it comes to the ASA, typically we would detail the trigger events. So these are events that when they occur, the company is supposed to issue their shares to the investors. Typically, trigger events are, number one, when the funding round comes to a close. Second, when the company, for example, IPOs or is sold as part of an M&A deal. Or lastly, when a long stop date is met. Now, if you've got any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. I promise I will answer any questions that you may have. And if you're looking to take on investors and want to familiarize yourself, for example, with the seed enterprise investment scheme, make sure to watch my video right here that talks about that scheme specifically. Thank you for watching.